Hello, Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Usman Alauddin, and I will be teaching in this semester the course of internal combustion engines. The course title is ME 215. So, I will start the lecture with a short introduction of mine. As I already told my name is Dr. Usman Alauddin, and I'm serving as an assistant professor in mechanical department. I am also the director of NED Dice Energy Innovation Center. Most of you already know me because I have taught the course of thermodynamics in the last semester. So in in today's lecture, these are the learning outcomes of today's lecture. So I will start the lecture with course CLOs and other details of the course, like the what are the reference book, textbook, and what is the sessional marks distribution. Then in the second phase, I will discuss what is engine and heat engine, comparison of internal and external combustion engines, pros and cons of internal combustion engines, engine classification, and at the last, I will be discussing basic engine components and their nomenclature. So these are the learning outcomes of today's lecture. So I expect that at the end of today's lecture, you will have a thorough understanding of these points. So these are the course learning outcomes. These are and the course of internal combustion engine has four course learning outcomes. The statements of CLO1, CLO2, CLO3, and CLO4 are written and mentioned in this table. CLO1, CLO2, and CLO3 are related to theory of the course, while the CLO4 grabs the working and performance of different types of basic and modern IC engines and their major components. It is related to the practicals. So in the theory section, we will be covering these first three learning outcomes, and you guys are pretty much familiar with the OBE systems, OBE system, and what are the course learning outcome, what are PLOs, and you already know that you have to pass each CLO, and you will be given like two or three attempts in the form of quizzes, assignment, or in the final paper or in the midterm. At least you will be given two attempts to pass each CLO. So I'm not going to spend too much time on these CLO statements. You can have a look into them, and if you have any question, we can discuss in the live session. So I have in this slide I have mentioned that which chapters of the textbook will be covered in CLO1. So chapter number 1, 3, 8, 9, 13, 14, 16, and 17 will be covered in CLO1, and you can see at the bottom of the slide that only theory of all these chapters. So CLO1 deals with the theory. Like in like if you have a question from CLO1, then it will have only theory, like the definition, explanation, discuss, describe. So such questions will be asked from the topics of these chapters. Then this is CLO2, and you can note that CLO2 starts with solve numerical problems related to the design and operation of internal combustion engines. So few chapters are same, but now as you can see that only numerical and derivations of all these chapters will be covered in this CLO2. That is, in CLO2 you will be given like some numericals or some derivation to solve. Then this is CLO3, and CLO3 has chapter number 12, 15, 6, and 7, and both theory and numerical can be asked in this CLO. And CLO4, as I already told you, it is related to the practical. Okay, so now we have the text and reference books. So internal combustion engines by V. Kennison. This is the textbook for this course. In the Google Classroom of the course, I have attached the PDF file of the textbook. And there are some other reference books like the Internal Combustion Engines by R.K. Rajput. This is also a very good book. Introduction to Internal Combustion Engines by R. Stone. This is uh, this book is relatively bit difficult to understand because its language is little bit difficult to understand as compared to Rajput and Garrison. But um, this is the reference book. You can also consult this book. Now, the marks distribution and grading, I have written here that the total sessional marks will be 50 as compared to the previous session. This is not yet confirmed, it is to be decided. That is why I have written tentatively that there will be like 50 sessional marks, and what will be the distribution, it will be decided later on. Okay, so let's start the course of internal combustion engine. Uh, The word engine comes in the course title, internal combustion engine. So what is an engine? Engine is a device which transforms one form of energy into another form of energy. So you know this basic definition. And when we talk about transforming one form of energy into another form of energy, then the very important concept comes into the play, which is the efficiency. That we always talks about the efficiency, that how much is the efficiency from of conversion of one form of energy into another form of energy. Then normally most of the engines convert thermal energy into mechanical work, and therefore they are called heat engines. And if you remember, in chapter number 6 of thermodynamics, we learned in very detail, in too much detail, about the heat engines. So heat engine is a device whose input is heat and the output is mechanical work. So it takes some heat from the source, it converts part of this heat into useful work output, and it rejects the remaining amount of heat into the to the cold sink. So QH minus QC will be the net work done. So internal combustion engine, uh, we are talking about a device which transforms one form of energy into another form of energy. Now let's talk about comparison between internal and external combustion engines. So what is an external combustion engine and what is an internal combustion engine? So as the name suggests, that in external combustion engine, combustion will be taking place outside the system. There will be a device, there will be a proper device, there will be a proper place outside the system where the combustion will be taking place. Whereas in internal combustion engine, there will be no dedicated device, there will be no dedicated space, but there will be a small portion inside the system where the combustion will be taking place. So that is why they are called internal combustion engine. So in internal combustion engine, combustion will be taking place within the engine, whereas in external combustion engine, combustion will be taking place outside the system. Let's talk about the steam power plant, which we discussed in thermodynamics. So what is a steam power plant? Steam power plant is a is a plant which uses water as a working fluid, and it produces the work output, useful work output in the form of, let's suppose, electricity. So let's talk about the key electric power plant or hub power plant. They are using the steam power plant. So when you, let's suppose, when you have a chance to visit these plants like K Electric or a hub power plant, you will see that the steam power plants are pretty large setup. So like probably you need a whole day, one whole day to visit the whole power plant. So like boiler where the combustion is taking place is like 10-story building. So you have to go like you have to go from a lift to from bottom to top. It's so huge. So uh, the boiler, the combustion will be taking place in boiler, and it will produce the hot steam, and then it passes through like a piping system, and it passes through some heat exchange devices. Then it will go into the turbine, and it will produce the power output. So this is an example of an external combustion engine where like combustion is taking place somewhere else. Now let's talk about the internal combustion engine. this is the, let's suppose this is example of a bike engine. Like it is not like this, that you have a combustion chamber where it's like 2 meter away from the engine or 5 meter away from the engine. It's not like this. There is an engine, and within the engine the combustion will be taken. Like you will supply the air fuel mixture, and then with the help of a spark plug you initiate the combustion, and the combustion will take place. Exhaust gases are formed, and these exhaust gases will push the piston uh, downward, and then and the crankshaft rotates, and the vehicle rotates. So this is an example of a of an internal combustion engine. So now at this point I would like to discuss the importance of your course, that is the course of internal combustion engine ME215. Because if you realize that the course is important, the course is important to study, then uh, the interest of the students automatically develop. When the students know that the course is important, the course is very applied, that they will be dealing with the engine, and they will be like seeing different components of an engine. Because these engines, you use in your daily life. You like most of you are using the motorbike, car, etc. So if you learn few new things in this course, then you will be applying this knowledge directly to your daily life. So this is very important. So this, when you know that the course is applied, the course is of applied nature, then the student interest is automatically developed. So now to make you understand the importance of your course, let's discuss some applications of internal combustion engine. Because it's a psychology, that if you somehow convince somebody that there are many important applications of a thing, then you can make him or her realize that this thing is important. So now if I ask from you that what are the applications of internal combustion engine, if you see your daily lives, then if from your daily lives, can you identify a few examples where the internal combustion engines are used? Then straight away the answer should come that the internal combustion engines are used in the automobile sector. And if I talk about the automobiles, uh, what are the numbers? The numbers are not in hundred, not in thousand. There are billions of automobiles which are running on the roads, like motorbikes, cars, trucks, heavy trucks. Some so these automobiles are in a large number, and so much that, like, you know that in like in when NAD was started, we only have a mechanical department, and then later on we develop a separate department which is called automotive engineering. In automotive engineering, they specifically study the internal combustion engine. This is the importance of of your course. Then apart from the transportation sector, like people are using the transportation, like the automobiles for like the private use. The people have their own vehicles. Then we have the public transport system. Then we have the luggage transport system. Like we transport the vegetables, fruits, luggage, all these things from one place to another place. We all need the automobiles, the vehicles. Then if we talk about the power generation, then in power generation, the internal combustion engines are also used. Like for example, like in Pakistan, we have a load shedding problem. So most of the people have a generator, small generator at their home. So like 1 kVA, 2 kVA, 10 kVA, 100 kVA. So we have small to large generators running in our houses. And secondly, in industry, they are also using the internal combustion engine generators for the power production. Uh, like I remember last week I met with a guy with from Thal Engineering. They told me that they are not taking the electricity from K Electric because it's very expensive. So they have their own internal combustion engine based generator. So they in the office timing, like they switch off the electricity from the K Electric, and they turn on their private generators. So they use the diesel and some other fuel, and the electricity they produce from the electric from the generators is relatively uh, cheap. So like internal combustion engines have application in automotive sector, and the power production, and and you know that in power production is a big application. And then we talk about the locomotive, like in trains, they are using the internal combustion engines. In aeroplanes they are also using the internal combustion engine. In small to big ships, like in marine, they are using the internal combustion engine. So the thing which I want to realize is that the course of internal combustion is a very important course. Not only that, if you develop strong concepts in this course, it will give you good marks in this course. Secondly, if you have good concepts in internal combustion engine, it will help you a lot in your personal development as an engineer. So you can apply most of the things which you are going to learn in this course in your daily lives. Okay, so now let's move forward. Let's discuss some pros and cons of internal combustion engine. So, first thing is the absence of heat exchangers in the passage of the working fluid results in a considerable mechanical simplicity and improved thermal efficiency. Now, like I told you, in external combustion engine, we have a dedicated device or dedicated space where the combustion will take place, and then from that device the the hot working fluid will be transported with the help of a piping system, and in between you will have different heat exchangers. So when you are doing the combustion in the inside the engine, you will eliminate all these devices. Like there is no need of a special boiler, there is no need of the piping system, there is no need of the heat exchange devices. So it will make the system simplify. So like the system will become simple, the system will become less in weight, the system will become less in weight, then the system will become less costly as well. And when you have less components, the heat losses will be reduced, and ultimately efficiency will be increased. So this is a very big advantage of using internal combustion engine, is that they are simple in size. Because I already told you that if you talk about the steam power plant, you need one day to visit the whole power plant. So there are so much different devices, and like the piping system, and all these things. So all these things will be eliminated in the internal combustion engine. The second point is that low weight to power ratio as compared to the steam power plant. So when you compare the internal combustion engine with the steam power plant, as I already told you, that they have less weight, and more power. So the weight to power ratio will be lower as compared to the steam power plant. And possible to develop reciprocating internal combustion engine of very small power. Like for example, you have a 1 kVA or 2 kVA generator running in your houses, and we have like a 70 cc bike, or lawn mower, like a machine used to cut the grass in the lawns. So like in internal combustion engine provide the luxury of uh, making small devices which can produce the very small power output. But let's suppose if you need a 1 kilowatt, and for 1 kilowatt you cannot go to install a steam power plant, because a steam power plant is requires a heavy investment, and a huge space, and too much investment. But for internal combustion engine, they are small in size, so you can go for the very small power outputs. Power output, or even a fraction of kilowatt with reasonable efficiency and cost. This thing we have already discussed. Higher thermal efficiencies can be obtained with moderate maximum working pressure of the fluid in the cycle. Since the system is small, so we can develop high pressures in the engines, and higher pressure mean higher efficiency. The maximum temperature of the working fluid in the cycle persists only for a very small fraction of the cycle time. Therefore, very high working fluid temperatures can be employed, resulting in higher thermal efficiency. It means that that we already discussed the internal combustion engine in the course of thermodynamics. There's a compression stroke. We compress the air fuel mixture, and then we give a spark with the help of a spark plug. The combustion starts, the exhaust gases are formed, then these exhaust gases will push the piston downward. So this will apply a force on the crankshaft, and the crankshaft rotates, and then we have a and the rotation of the shaft. Now this combustion takes place within a jiffy, like very small fraction of time. So it means since the maximum temperatures are occurring for a very small time, so we can have a very high temperature. So this will have a moderate average temperatures of the engine, because the high temperatures are occurring for a very small period of time. So this allows to achieve the high temperatures, and high temperatures mean high efficiency, because if you remember in the Carnot engine, the Carnot efficiency depends on only two things: the high temperature and the minimum temperature. If the higher the maximum temperature, the higher will be the efficiency. Now let's discuss some disadvantages of internal combustion engine. The most important uh, disadvantage of the internal combustion is that they have the vibration problem, because in internal combustion engine we have a large number of moving parts, like the piston is moving back and forth, doing the reciprocating motion. We have the gears, we have the crankshaft, we have too many moving parts, and then we have uh, so much this much number of moving parts. We experience the problem of vibration. This is the sound, that is sound pollution. Whenever you have, let's recall the bike or a car or a truck engine. Whenever it's running, the engine is vibrating. Secondly, in internal combustion engine, we do not have the luxury of using a variety of fuels. Only limited number of liquid or gaseous fuels can be used, and these fuels are expensive, like petrol or CNG. They can be used, but in the steam power plant, when you talk about the crude oil or the heavy furnace oil, they can be directly used. So these fuels are dirty. These fuels are relatively inexpensive, but these dirty fuels cannot be used in the internal combustion engine. Otherwise we will have the problem of like carbon gathering at the piston and the cylinder walls, and ultimately the engine will become choke. So you cannot use the dirty fuel in the internal combustion engine. So this is another advantage. Then we have, and then we need to use the cooling system. Like in car we have a radiator. So because engine is hot, so we need to cool it down. Otherwise the critical parts of the engine will be expanded, and they will be and the engine will be sealed. Then we have the because and the last point is that we have the friction. We have the moving parts, so they are rubbing parts. So like the piston is moving inside uh, the cylinder, so we'll have the frictional losses. So because of the friction, some useful heat will be lost, and this is another disadvantage of the internal combustion engine. Okay, so now let's discuss some engine classification. So heat engines can be classified, as we already discussed, that into two categories. Number one is internal combustion engines, and the second category is the external combustion engines. So whether it is an internal combustion engine or external combustion engine, there are two types, like the rotary and the reciprocating. And in the reciprocating mean, we will have a piston cylinder device, and in the piston will move back and forth. It will do the reciprocating motion. That is why they are called reciprocating engines. And the other engines will be rotary motion, that the moving parts will have a rotary motion. In the rotary type internal combustion engine, we have open cycle gas turbines and Wankel engine. And in the reciprocating type internal combustion engines, we have gasoline engine or diesel engine. Right? These are the like two common engines. The gasoline engine is the spark ignition engine, which is commonly used in the bikes or in small cars. And then we have the diesel engine, like which is normally used in the cars or trucks, etc. And on the other side, reciprocating type external combustion engines, we have steam engine, which was used in the past. Now they have become obsolete. And then the Stirling engines, and rotary type external combustion engine, we have steam turbine and closed cycle gas turbine, which is used for the power production. And on the left side, the open cycle gas turbine means they are used in the aeroplanes. So this is another way of classification of engines on the basis of cycle of operation. So we on the basis of cycle of operation, we can categorize the internal combustion engines into two categories. Number one is the constant volume heat addition cycle, or Otto cycle. It is also called spark ignition engine, SI engine, or gasoline engine. And then second one is the constant pressure heat addition cycle or diesel engine cycle. It is also called compression ignition engine, CI engine, or diesel engine. So these engines we have already learned in the course of thermodynamics. So if you recall, so in the spark ignition engine we have a constant volume heat addition, while in diesel engine we have a constant pressure heat addition. So this is one way of classifying the engines. So spark ignition engines or compression ignition engine. Another way of classifying the engines on the basis of types of fuel used. So on the basis of type of fuel used, we can classify as engines based on type of fuel. Engines using volatile liquid fuels like gasoline, alcohol, kerosene, benzene, etc. Volatile liquid fuels are the fuel which, like, they evaporate very quickly, like the petrol. If you leave the petrol in an open container, after few hours, all the gasoline will be gone, because it will evaporate, and go into the atmosphere. So the engines which use the volatile liquid fuels, like uh, bikes, motorbikes, aeroplanes, they use the gasoline or the petrol and kerosene. And and then the engines, like the second engines, are engines using gaseous fuels like natural gas, liquefied petroleum gas, blast furnace gas, biogas, etc. So, like, that we have few cars which are running on the natural gas and liquefied petroleum gas. So liquefied petroleum gas is relatively expensive, so it is not commonly used in the vehicles. But natural gas we have in abundant, so we are commonly using natural gas for the engines. Then the third type of engine using solid fuels like charcoal and powdered coal, etc. Like, these things were used in the past in the world. Like China used the charcoal or powdered coal based internal combustion engines, but now they are becoming, because people are banning these devices because of the pollution problem, but they can be used. Then the fourth one is the engine using viscous fuels like heavy and light diesel oils, like the trucks, the heavy trucks, they are using or the buses, or they are using viscous fuel. And the last one is the engine using two fuels, the hybrid fuel, like most of the cars have option of running on the petrol or a CNG. When you have the CNG, it will be running on CNG. When the CNG is finished, you can shift it to the other fuel like petrol. So this is one of the ways to classify engines, that is on the basis of type of fuel used. Third way of classification is according to the method of charging the engines. So charging the engine means is not like that you attach a charger or a plug and then the engine will be charged. Charging in charging the engine mean in internal combustion mean is the supply of air fuel mixture. If you supply the air fuel mixture to an engine, it means you are charging the engine. So there are two ways. You can supply the air fuel mixture or air at a normal atmospheric pressure, then these are the naturally aspirated engines. And the second one is the supercharged engines. In the supercharged engines, you supply the air fuel mixture above the atmospheric pressure. So you slightly increase the pressure, it will improve the combustion efficiency, which we will be discussing in detail in the upcoming chapters. uh, but the supercharged engine and the natural aspirated engine has a one major difference, that in supercharged engines air fuel mixture is supplied at a high pressures. So the engine can also be classified on the basis of type of ignition. So we have like battery ignition system, battery ignition engine, or magneto ignition engine. Like in cars and trucks, we use the battery for the ignition system. Like if we have a spark ignition engine, you know that in spark ignition engine we need a spark to initiate the combustion. and that spark comes from a spark plug. And like spark plug is a device to which you supply a high voltage current, and the high voltage current produces a spark and it produces the combustion. And that high voltage current comes from, let's suppose, either from a battery or a magneto. In cars you have a battery, or in motorbikes you have a small coil which is a magnet which is called magneto coil. And it on the principle of uh, change of flux, change of electrical flux, it produces the current, and that current is then supplied to the spark plug, and it produces the spark. And in compression ignition engines, we do not need any such system, because you remember, in compression ignition engine, only air is compressed, and it is compressed so much that its temperature reaches to the self ignition temperature of the fuel, and then you supply the fuel and the combustion starts. Engine can also be classified on the method of type of cooling. So engines can be air cooled or water cooled. So if you remember the bike engine, like I can show you again. So this is the bike engine. So at the bike, this is the combustion chamber. So this is the combustion chamber, and we have the fins. So this is air cooled engine. And on the other hand, in cars we have a radiator which cools down the water, and then that cold water is supplied to the engine, and it extracts heat from the engine, and then it comes back into the radiator, and it cool downs. So we use the water cooled engine. Engines can also be classified on the basis of cylinder arrangement, like we have the single cylinder, inline or straight cylinders, like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cylinders, and they are inline. Then we have V engine. This is the most commonly used engine, like the cylinders and the pistons are arranged in the shape of V. Then we have opposed cylinders, like we have two cylinders opposite to each other. We have a W engine, in which the cylinders and pistons are arranged in the shape of W, like this, and this is like the V shape. Opposed pistons means like the piston will be up, the two pistons will be opposite to each other. And then we have a radial engine. Okay, so this is at this point we are done with the classification of engines. Like this is a very simple topic. Like we discuss a different ways of classifying the engines. Like we can classify the engines on the basis of cycle, type of cycle of operation, like auto cycle or diesel cycle, on the basis of fuel, on the basis of cooling system, on the basis of ignition system, on the basis of cylinder arrangement. Now we come to the another important topic of today's lecture, that we will be discussing basic components of internal combustion engines. So the first common part is the first main important part is the cylinder block. Cylinder block is the main supporting structures on which the other various components are mounted. It contains the cylinders, and normally made of cast iron or aluminium. So I can show you the picture. This part is called uh, cylinder block. So normally this thing we will do in the practicals as well. So like we will show you some real engines, and like let's suppose if I ask that please show me where is the cylinder block, so you should always go towards the center of the engine, because at the center of the engine you will find the uh, cylinder block, because this is the main component of the engine, which provides on which other various components are mounted. And in the cylinder block you will find the cylinders. Then if it is air cooled, you will find the fins outside the cylinder block, if it is air cooled. And if it is water cooled, you will find the water jacket. So you can see the small holes outside the cylinders in the body of cylinder block. So these are the passages through which the cold water passes, and it extracts heat from the engine. So this is the cylinder block. And then the top part is called cylinder head. This is the cylinder head. And cylinder head, as the name suggests, it will be mounted on the top of the cylinder block, and you will always use a gasket between the cylinder head and the cylinder block, because this gasket will provide a sealed uh, a gas tight space. It will avoid the leakage of the oil and the exhaust gases. So you will always use a gasket between cylinder head and the engine block. And if I show you an engine, a real engine, and I ask, please show me where is the cylinder head, then you will always go to the top of the engine. So you should put your hand on the top of the engine, like here, sir, that this is the engine cylinder head. And the bottom part, this part is called uh, crankcase. And crankcase also acts as a sump, because here the oil, because if the engine is not running, then due to the gravity, all the oil will come here, and the oil will be stored here in this sump. So this is called crankcase. So cylinder block, cylinder head, crankcase. So cylinder block will be in the middle. It will be in the middle, and it is the main component. It is the main supporting structure for the other various components. And then we have the cylinder head. Cylinder head will be at top of the engine, and it contains the valves, springs, and the camshaft, all these things. And the crankcase at the bottom. Crankcase will be at the bottom, and it will act as a sump for storing the oil. And the crankshaft, the rotating shaft will also be found at the bottom of the engine. So crankshaft will be found here, and again the gasket will be used between the cylinder block and the crankcase. So and then there will be different nuts and bolts will be used to uh, to make the components perfectly attached to each other. So cylinder block, cylinder heads, crankcase, this is done. So again, this is the cross section of the internal combustion engine. So this part, the middle part is the cylinder block, the lower part is the crankcase, and the top part is the this part is the cylinder head. Now the fourth basic component of internal combustion is the cylinder. So cylinder, these are the circular cylinders in which the piston moves back and forth. The piston does the reciprocating motion. So this component is called cylinder. So like this engine has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cylinders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cylinders, and the piston is moving up and down. Normally the surface of the cylinders are made very like polished hard surface, so that the friction is reduced and the piston moves back and forth with very less friction. So these are the cylinders. Then the combustion chamber, like there is no specific combustion chamber, but the top part of the top space of the cylinder is the combustion chamber, because here the spark plug. Let's suppose in the case of spark ignition engine, here the air fuel mixture will come uh, into the cylinder, and in the compression stroke, air fuel mixture will be compressed, and when the piston is at the top dead center, the spark plug will give a spark, and the combustion will start. And the combustion chamber will vary in the size. Like when it is and the piston is at top dead center, the combustion will be like this. Will have a minimum volume, and when the piston is at bottom dead center, the combustion chamber will have a maximum volume. So uh, I have put like the a variety of videos at the end of third lecture. It will show you all these parts in a real engine, and you will see the working of in an engine. So if if somehow some concepts are not clear, the videos will clear each and everything. So if you have any question, don't get confused, don't get puzzled. All the questions will be answered when I will show you a variety of videos at the end of lecture number 3 of this week. Now we have the piston and the piston rings, the cylindrical shaped mass that reciprocates back and forth in the cylinder. This is the piston. Like this is the piston, and we have the connecting rod. So the piston will move back and forth in the cylinder. So it fits perfectly into the cylinder, providing a gas tight space with the help of piston rings. Normally there is a small clearance between piston and cylinder, and this small clearance is covered with the help of piston rings. So there are two types of piston rings. One are the compression rings and the other is the lubricating ring. So with the help of lubrication, these rings provide a gas tight space. And this is the first link in transmitting the pressure forces to the rotating crankshaft. So when the combustion is started, the exhaust gases are formed. The exhaust gases will exert force. The exhaust gases will exert force on this piston, and with the help of, like, the force will be exerted here, and then this force will be transmitted to the crankshaft, and the crankshaft will rotate. So you will see the slots here, like these are the slots, and in these slots the rings will be inserted, these rings, piston rings. And then we talk about the inlet and exhaust valves. So these parts are very easy to understand, because valves are like mushroom shaped puppet types, like you can see here, like, you can see here, these are the inlet and exhaust valves. They are mushroom shaped puppet types. So with the help of inlet valve, the air fuel mixture comes into the cylinder, and with the help of exhaust valve, the exhaust gases go out of the cylinder. And the opening and closing of the exhaust and intake valve will be done with the help of a camshaft. So I will show you later what is the camshaft. So intake manifold, the inlet valve, this is the inlet and exhaust. These are the inlet and exhaust valves, but there is a passage or a piping system through which the air fuel mixture comes into the cylinder. Like you can see here, this is a, like this is a piping system through which air fuel mixture comes into the cylinder. So this is the inlet manifold, and this is the inlet valve. Similarly, this is the piping system through which the exhaust gases go out of the system. This is the exhaust valve. This is the exhaust valve, and this is the exhaust manifold. So the exhaust manifold is normally made of cast iron or composite material, while the intake manifold can be made of plastic, because the intake manifold, air fuel mixture is coming into the cylinder, and it will have low temperature, but the exhaust gases will have high temperature. That is why the exhaust manifold cannot be made with the plastic. Now the other part is the spark plug. As I have already told you that the spark plug is a device which takes the high voltage current, and it produces a spark with the help of a with the help of a current, and this spark initiates the combustion in the cylinder. So then we have the connecting rod. It interconnects the piston and the crankshaft, and it transmits the gas forces from the piston to the crankshaft. So this is the shape of the piston. A connecting rod. Connecting rod has one small end and one big end. So this end is connected to the piston, and this end is connected to the crankshaft. Like we use the gudgeon pin, to join the small end to the piston, and we use the crank pin to join the big end to the crankshaft. So you can see here, this is the piston, and the piston is connected with the connecting rod to the crankshaft. And you can also see this thing in this animation, that this is the piston. Piston is connected to the to the piston is connected to the uh, crankshaft with the help of a connecting rod. Okay. Now the other important basic component of an internal combustion is the camshaft. So camshaft, this is the camshaft, and camshaft have like these lobes, and they are not circular, they are elliptical in shape, and like and this elliptical shapes uh, opens and closes the valve. So like when we have this, you can see here, when this the highest point of the lobe come, it pushes the valve downward, and let's suppose it is the inlet air fuel, this is the inlet valve, then when it is pushed downward it will be opened and the air fuel mixture will come into the engine, like you can see here. So this is the valve. So when it is pushed downward, it will go downward and this space will become open and the air fuel mixture will come into the cylinder. Similarly, when it is pushed, this valve will come downward because it is connected to a spring. So this thing will have a open space and the exhaust gases will go out of the engine. So with the help of camshaft, like camshaft has lobes. So these lobes opens open and close the inlet and exhaust valve. And the camshaft is actually, crankshaft is rotating the camshaft. This is the crankshaft. You can see we have a timing belt. So crankshaft is actually rotating the camshaft. So you can also see here we have the crankshaft, and it is actually rotating the camshaft, and the inlet and exhaust valve are open and closed. Secondly, it also controls the ignition system, like when the air fuel mixture is sprayed and the combustion and the spark plug is the spark. So this thing is also controlled by a camshaft. The other basic component is the crankshaft. So crankshaft is the heavy shaft to which, like here, this is the big end, like the piston connecting rod will be connected here. We have the connecting rod. So here we have the piston. This is the piston. Small end will be connected here. This is the connecting rod, and then the connecting rod is connected to the crankshaft. Now when the piston is pushed downward, this crankshaft will be rotated, and you can see there are many balancing loads. So these loads are for the static and dynamic balancing. So once the crankshaft is pushed, it will keep on rotating because of the inertia of these weights. So uh, like for the first instant, you have to give the push from the battery, like the battery supplies the current to the engine, and the engine will be when the engine is started, and when the engine is started it will keep on running. For the first push you need the starting or ignition system, and the crankshaft will always be found at the bottom of the engine, like where the crankcase is there. So this is the piston, this is the connecting rod, this is piston, this is CR connecting rod, and this is the crankshaft, CH crankshaft. So crankshaft will be found here. Okay. Now the other important part is the flywheel. Flywheel is attached at the crankshaft. So the net torque imparted to the crankshaft during one complete cycle of operation of the engine fluctuates. That is because of the variations in the air fuel supply, the torque will not be uniform. When the torque is not uniform, it may happen that the vehicle speeds varies. It goes up and down. But you need the uniform speed or uniform torque at the crankshaft or the engine shaft. So what you do, you can install a high mass body, like a high mass wheel at the crankshaft. So what does it do? It will remove the fluctuation, the slight fluctuation in the torque, and it will provide a uniform torque at the crankshaft, and the vehicle will run at a uniform speed. So when you attach this heavy disc at the crankshaft, when the crankshaft is rotated, this fly will keep it rotating with a uniform speed. So this is the purpose of a flywheel. Okay, so we are done with the basic components. So students, these parts are very very important. So when we will be doing the practicals viva, we will show you different parts, and then you have to tell the names of each part. So like we can show you this part, so you have to tell us that this is the camshaft, these are the lobes, these are the inlet and exhaust valve, we have the tappets, we have the rocker arm. So this is the flywheel, this is the piston, this is the connecting rod, this is the crankshaft. So you have to tell each and every component of an engine. So I will, as I told you, I will show you different videos as well. So these uh, you will get familiar with the basic parts. Now we will do some nomenclature. We will discuss some common terminologies which we will be using most of the time in the internal combustion engines. Uh, there are two terms like the TDC and BDC. TDC is the top dead center. TDC is the top dead center. Like you can see here, you have a piston, you have a cylinder, and this piston will go this piston will go up and down, up and down, up and down. So the position of the piston when it reaches to the maximum point here, so the piston will go up, up, up. A time will come when this piston will stop, and then the piston will come down. So there will be a minimum volume formed in the cylinder. This position is called top dead center. So at top dead center, the volume will be minimum in the cylinder, and then when the piston goes down, it will go down and will come here, it will stop, and then it will go up. So this is the called bottom dead center, and at bottom dead center the volume will be maximum in the cylinder. So top dead center, that is this is it will at top dead center, this will we will have the clearance volume, and at the top and the bottom dead center we have the maximum volume in the cylinder. Stroke, the distance between TDC and BDC is called stroke, and normally it is represented by L, and it is mentioned in the unit of millimeter. The diameter of the piston is called bore. It is represented by small d, and it's also mentioned in millimeter. So the piston area is represented by A and centimeter square cc. So let's suppose we can assume the piston as a cylinder. So what is the area of the cylinder? The area of the cylinder is pi r square, or pi by 4, d square. Inlet and exhaust valve we have already learned. Through the inlet valve, the air fuel mixture comes into the cylinder, and through the exhaust valve, the exhaust gases will go out of the cylinder. Clearance volume, it is represented by Vc, and its unit is centimeter cube, or cc. The minimum volume formed in the cylinder when the piston is at TDC is called the clearance volume. Displacement or swept volume, it is represented by Vs. Its unit is centimeter cube, or cc. The volume displaced by the piston as it moves between TDC and BDC is called the displacement volume. So when the piston goes from BDC to TDC, and the exhaust valve is open, so the volume will be displaced. All the volume present here, it will go out. So let's suppose the exhaust gases are present in the cylinder. These exhaust gases will be displaced when the piston goes from BDC to TDC, and the exhaust gases will go out. Similarly, if the piston is going from TDC to BDC and the inlet valve is open, then the air fuel mixture will come into the cylinder. Again, the volume will be displaced. So if we want to know the volume, so the unit will be area into length, because this thing will be like a volume cylindrical shape. So the formula for the volume of cylinder is area into length. Area we can calculate with the help of pi by 4 d square into L. So cubic capacity or engine capacity, like this is a very common term, like those who are familiar with bikes and in cars, like 660 cc engine, 1000 cc engine, 1300 cc engine, 850 cc engine. So this is the engine capacity. So what is the how do you calculate the engine capacity or cubic capacity? So you need to multiply the swept volume of a cylinder, multiply with the number of cylinders. Let's suppose if you have four cylinders, so you need to multiply the swept volume of one cylinder with the help of to the multiply with the 4. So 1000 cc means, let's suppose it has 4 cylinders, so it means the volume of one cylinder will be 250 cc. So 250 into 4 will be 1000 cc engine. Compression ratio is the ratio between maximum volume and the minimum volume. Maximum volume is at VDC, VBDC divided by minimum volume. Minimum volume is formed at TDC. So total volume can be written as VC plus VS, that is the clearance volume plus sweat volume. You can see this figure. Clearance volume so this volume will be clearance volume and this volume will be swept volume, and if we add them together we will get the total volume. So Vc plus Vs divided by Vc, and if we break the LCM this will become 1 plus Vs upon Vc. This is the formula for the compression ratio. So clearance volume is shown here. This is the clearance volume, that is volume at TDC or Vc, clearance volume, and this is the swept volume, and if we add them together it will become the VPDC. This is the total volume, and total volume is equal to Vs plus Vc. So these things are also shown here. This is the clearance volume, TDC, piston rings, bottom dead center, connecting rod, crankshaft, piston at top dead center, and then we have the piston at bottom dead center, and let's suppose this compression ratio is 6. This is the bore. So this is a very simple figure. On the basis of stroke to bore ratio, so if D is less than L, that is the stroke is less than, sorry, the bore is less than stroke. So like we have uh, something like this. So as you can see here, this is the bore D, and bore is less than stroke. So this is the under square engine, and when we have the square engine, in square engine we have bore is equal to stroke. We have a square engine, and then when D is greater than L, it will be a over square engine. An over square engine can operate at higher speeds because of larger bore and shorter stroke. The stroke will be, so over square engine will be look like, so something like this. D, and as you can see that D is greater than L, so the stroke is is shorter. So because of that, the over square engine can run at higher speeds. Okay, so with this I end uh, lecture number 1. So we have discussed quite a lot of theory, so I recommend you to go through all these points, and these points are not very difficult. uh, if you are getting confused and if you are getting puzzled, then do not get panic, because at the end of video lecture number 3 I will be showing you different videos of the engine models and the real engines. Then everything will be cleared. So please mark my words, everything will be cleared. Different parts, working of different engines, spark ignition engine, compression ignition engine, they will all be explained when you will have like the pictorial view, the pictorial way of explanation. You will have the videos, you will have the pictures, you will have the moving parts, you will have the real engine parts. So they will be explained with the help of interactive video section. So everything will be cleared. So I hope today I end today's lecture. So I say Allah Hafiz and see you next time. Allah Hafiz.